when you start having problems. And the more complexity you bring into your organization, no matter if it's on your people, your processes, or whatever you're doing in your day-to-day activity, that's a bad thing. Complexity just leads to failures. Because it's technology. You can't just throw technology at problems. You can throw some technology at problems and hope it's the right technology. But hope in one hand and garbage in one hand, see which one tracks flies first. If you throw the wrong technology at anything, it's never going to fix it. So AI will take whatever data you have and use that as your repository of truth. If your data is old, dirty as all can be, that's when you start getting problems.
Welcome to the CEO and the Salesman podcast. Today I'm joined by Christopher Carter. Christopher has spent decades in complex, fast-growing organizations. He's an author, now a renowned speaker. He's invited to lots and lots of conferences. When I spoke with him to have this conversation previous week, he was at a conference in Miami, I think, which is much nicer weather than where we are now. So I'm delighted to have you on, Chris. Very, very excited. Thanks very much for joining us on the CEO and the Salesman podcast.
Thanks, Matthew. I'm excited. Thank you for having me. And yes, unfortunately, it's negative 17 degrees here today, so I would rather be back down in Florida.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't do the math for Fahrenheit versus Celsius, even though I am in Jersey and I've moved here 4 months ago. I'm still in Celsius, so at the moment it's -1, so that's 1 degree Celsius below freezing where I am. What is that? So negative in Fahrenheit would be bitterly cold.
It is bitterly cold. It is bitterly cold, yes.
Well, look, mate, nobody joins this podcast to talk about the weather, so sorry about everybody. But what I want to talk about, so Christopher, you've had many, many decades working with SAP, which is one of the largest ERP, and of course it's expanded across. Whenever I walked through the Hong Kong airport years ago, it would be SAP adverts. And I want to talk about competition in particular. And I know, as an author, you've seen dozens and dozens of scaling businesses. You've had a real front row seat to those organizations. And I want to have a conversation about competition versus complexity. And what you've seen is that has been the real challenges when it comes to organizations as they try to scale.
That's a great question. First of all, it's negative 29 degrees Celsius here, just to make sure that everybody knows how cold that is.
That is cold.
The complexity is really the issue. When companies were using SAP, and still are to this day, using SAP or any tool that they're using, anything with AI right now, that's the big word, so everybody can understand complexity. When they start making whole-scale modifications and making the tool more complex than it should be, that's when you start having problems. And the more complexity you bring into your organization, no matter if it's on your people, your processes, or whatever you're doing in your day-to-day activity, that's a bad thing. Complexity just leads to failures, because the more complex you make something, people don't understand. They can't gravitate towards making those adjustments. And you get everything from a basic, I know companies that wanted to change basic formatting inside of an invoice template. Like, well, you don't have to rewrite everything to do that. All you have to do is use this tool, build it. No, we want it our way. Well, that's part of the problem that you have with technology, especially with once now you start getting AI into it. You start making it more complex, and AI will make it even more complex on you if you really wanted to get to it. So complexity is a bad thing for any organization.
So when an organization brings you into their business and they go, right, we want to do this, we want to achieve that, where do you start in those conversations? How do you enter that conversation? What's your process that you go through to guide that business to simplifying and maximizing the internal value of the business?
It's a great question, Matthew, because the first thing that we do is I sit down with them, or my team sits down, and we literally just start asking some basic questions. We can learn really quickly if somebody's a very complex soul and they've brought that complexity into their business, because by the way that they answer what should be a very strategically simple question. If it can't be a yes or no answer and they just verbally vomit everything out, that's when you know, okay, we know what's going on here. Here comes the complexity, and it's coming from this individual or these individuals. My group is so important because I run the databases, and without my databases, blah 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 blah. Well, okay, well, what makes your database so much more better than somebody else and how you run it? Well, it's because Chris and Matthew are doing this, this, and this on a daily basis. And wait, what? That's standard.
We're updating tables live in the production environment where it's because it's a fast moving organization.
By the way, people never update your production, especially in real time.
I was working with an organization who was doing that, updating for a giant organization, and because I go in there and try to help their sales and marketing. That's my job, and I was having a conversation trying to understand the business. And they were talking to me about how they were updating the tables and updating in a live production environment. And this is a production environment that's doing 1 billion data transactions a day. So a lot of data transactions. And what was interesting is they hadn't had a failure in 5 years. But what's also interesting is when Infosys took over, the failures occurred almost every quarter.
Every quarter.
So the thing is, if you've got the smartest guys in the room running your database, you're probably okay, but the likelihood of having the smartest guys in the room every time is pretty low.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's bad complexity right there.
Yeah. So you have conversations, and I guess one of the things that I find is that when I start with a business and I know what they do, but I say, so explain to me what you do, and if they can't say something like we help X to do Y through Z,
yes.
If that sentence takes 3 minutes to answer, we got real issues here, right?
Absolutely correct. You should be able to know exactly what your company does, how it does it, when it does it, and literally just as you said, Matthew, 3 minutes or less.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. So look, you've already mentioned AI, which of course I want to get to, but I want to talk about how when you're working with an organization and you talk about the balance of speed versus scale, how do you help a person think through that process? Because I'm sure people get you in and say, right, we're going to bring in SAP, or we're going to bring in this new tool. We're going to put the foot down on the accelerator. Let's go. And you're smiling because I know that's a sentence you've heard many times. So yes. What's that conversation look like?
It's kind of funny because I was just talking to a firm the other week that was trying to do their migrations from ECC6 to S4 RISE, which is now in-memory database, HANA, the database, and they're going to RISE, which is the tenant that SAP holds. And I said, we got to get this done. We got about 6 months to do it. And the first thing I said to him, so who on your team can help me? Who's going to be able to do the testing and the support, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, that's all on you. So you don't have any people on your staff that is going to be able to do any testing for your database and for your system as we do the migrations. Well, no, that's all on you guys. So you haven't done any OCM, organizational change management. No, we don't need it. So who's going to run the systems after you're done? Well, our people are going to do that. Well, you got to have people who are trained on the new. Well, isn't it the same? No, it's not the same. So we go through this step. And so now we've gone through this process and we've stepped them back a little bit. Now we'll be able to do some things and we'll help them along the way. But now they realize people have got to get understanding. They've got to be trained. They've got to know what's going on. There's a whole process. It's not just step on the gas and my people can do it or your people are going to do it. It's let's figure this out. Let's go through. I call it stair-stepping. I've got a whole project plan that I use for stair-stepping, that this. And companies, when we work with companies, it works very well.
Yeah, very cool. So I love that thought of stepping up the stairs and, going from, and also the conversation is, well, you just go ahead and implement it. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? So the Dunning-Kruger effect is the less you know about something, the easier something seems. So just go in, back the truck up, drop off the software and plug it in and we're good to go, right?
That doesn't happen in SAP.
It's never happened anywhere.
Oh, my Lord. I don't know any applications where I just plug in the software and hope that
Yeah, that's it.
That would make
Maybe Trello. Maybe Trello. Maybe that's why, or Jira. That's why they became so successful, because it was pretty easy to use.
Yes.
So thinking about, so a lot of my clients are small organizations. They're trying to grow that 10 to 50 people, and they sort of, part of their DNA is that speed beast. They go, well, so the thing that made them useful and exciting or valuable at between 10 to 50 people I think I read in one of your articles, it makes them, from what they make them fast at 10 to 50, makes them fragile at 500 to 5,000 people. So at what point does speed and that attitude where does that get traded for, say, stability? Where does that get traded for, and where did leaders get that constantly wrong?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it really depends on the organization and the leadership of that organization. If leadership can work with their people to get them to understand and grow and how they're going to be able to move and what the activities are going to be as part of their organization, that's a wonderful thing. But if it's a very poor leader who doesn't communicate those steps well, doesn't do the OCMs, doesn't give them the ability to be able to do the things that they need to do, then that's going to come upon them very, very quickly and very harshly. There's got to be a great communication. That's why when I go in and I speak with organizations, I always ask the CEO, can we have you a part of this project? I need your leadership to help guide your people, or at least give me the COO or the CFO, somebody on a level where they're getting that and they can understand it and they can make those decisions. Because if you just say, oh, you know what, the manager of SAP will take care of these items. Well, that's not the person with the vision of the company. Where's the company's going to be? I want the CEO, because that person's going to lead with vision, and it's going to lead with, hey, I'm excited about this, people. Let's get this involved. And you're going to see a much smaller buffer with those activities wrapped around it.
So when a business is scaling, when do you see as the informality, that speed piece, actually becomes starting to be a liability and a risk? Where do you see that often?
You do. You see when all of a sudden things are going too fast and you've got to put the brakes on. You, as the outside organization that they've hired, you have got to be able to monitor that, watch that. I've got one situation this morning. They were on a conference call back to Germany at 2:00 this morning, and somebody from Germany all of a sudden started throwing a piece of wood inside the bicycle as we were driving down the track. We're like, okay, well, you didn't give us any of these details up front. Now all of a sudden you decide you want to be the leader of this pack. We've already got this go forward strategy. Oh, now you're changing it from this activity to this activity. Well, wait a second here. So the speed was going very nicely until something threw a wrench in it. We didn't catch that because that person wasn't involved. Now we did. Now we're slowing down very quickly, and we're making sure that everybody's aligned on that train together. And so as a third party that's brought into organizations, you have to monitor those activities and make sure that you can put those brakes on and you can slow that train down to make adjustments and go to the different train tracks.
Yeah, look, I love that, and I see that so often is that the business makes these decisions, but they forget to bring everybody on to the train, as you say, or as the I can't remember the name of the author, but get them on the right bus and the right seat.
Yes, get everybody on the right. Yes, yep.
Yeah. So using all the right, mixed metaphors. That's exciting for people listening. But it's so important, and even in selling and marketing, we've got to make sure all the people that are involved are going to be heard. And this is why a lot of the times when I'm helping organizations grow, is it's actually a hearts and minds program to start with, rather than a software program or a sales program or a technical program. It's actually hearts and minds. So you're a person in Germany who's probably culturally is very structured and procedural minded. I'm not saying anything about this individual, but culturally they are. It's very, very methodical, and we just didn't listen, didn't give that person enough time to talk, right?
Possibly. They were on all the conference calls that we had for the last 2 months. So I'm a little disappointed that this individual all of a sudden came into this meeting and literally started, all of a sudden they were making different changes and different variations. So we'll get it all worked out. We always do. You get people that feel like their butt hurt because they didn't get a chance to speak at one point in time. Well, you had plenty of opportunity to give your opinion and to voice it with people that were your management and others on site. Now it's time for us to really make it happen.
Maybe they recognized that there was going to be some type of control or some type of thing, some sort of screw that they turned or spreadsheet that they managed was going to be lost. And I found a lot of implementations that I've been part of is that the people that actually slow the roll, not necessarily like doing it out of anything other than, hey, this is actually going to affect my work, and I want, and they don't articulate it, but they build a little fiefdom around their people or process or finance or whatever system is. They build a little fiefdom around themselves, which makes them feel good. And now they're going to lose control because the machine starts to make those types of procedural, not decisions, but starts to drive those types of execution things.
Oh, yes. It happens quite a bit, especially in the SAP ecosystem. And this is right there for SAP. So you've got your areas of expertise. And this is a full-blown on validation assessment tool that is going to affect individuals internally and externally. And so now all of a sudden their little fiefdom might be. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
So continuing to talk about culture is that, every generation, and we're of a certain generation, but every generation thinks the next system's going to fix all their problems, made, the mess left by the last one. So why do you think technology consistently fails to fix businesses before we actually solve those internal issues?
So that's a great question, because it's technology. You can't just throw technology at problems. You can throw some technology at problems and hope it's the right technology, but hope in one hand and garbage in one hand, see which one tracks flies first. Technology is a tool to be used by the bigger, better, faster, stronger human beings that are there to help make decisions and to make things right. If you throw the wrong technology at anything, it's never going to fix it. And you can throw every upgrade in the book at it. It's not going to fix it. It's what's up here in people and how people use what's up here with the technology, the right technology, that's going to make an effect.
So where do leaders stop thinking about problems, or what problems do you think get amplified by new systems?
Oh, we are always thinking about problems that can happen with new systems. It's a system that's made, they can demo. Here's a great example. People demo software all the time, say, oh, it's the greatest, latest, and greatest. You need to have this in your company. Well, all of a sudden you start bringing it in, you start to implement it. Well, you didn't have this. You don't need this. You've already used this in another tool that's fantastic for you. All of a sudden you're like, well, okay, it worked really great as a demo. But if you're not a clear, concise thinker as part of your leadership, you just don't bring in tools to bring in tools. Hell, what are you, IBM? You're going to bring in any tool and every tool under the sun just because you want to buy it? Well, how do they integrate together? How do they work together? You've got this version of these softwares. You've got this version of these. So now all of a sudden this comes into play. You haven't thought that through. You really got to be clear and concise on how you think those avenues through.
And so have you seen many times when leadership have actually misdiagnosed the real issue? They want to achieve X and they go, well, we're going to buy Y to achieve X. But so can you give me an example of where a leader's come in and said they want to buy X, where actually they need to buy something else, or they need to think about something else first?
So it's kind of funny. I'm going to use the latest and greatest one. Everybody talks about AI and artificial intelligence, says, and I can use artificial intelligence, this, that, and that. So we were talking to an organization, and I'm literally doing this because just thinking about it makes me squint. We started a conversation, and the reason I started this conversation, I was at an event, and somebody just came up to me and started talking. Hey, Chris, good to talk to you. Hey, we're starting to use AI, but I can't get this to work. I saw that AI ROI thing that was out there, and we decided we're not going to be those people, but they ended up being those people. So for anybody that knows, MIT did a report on AI, and like 90-some% of the companies were failing at getting an ROI. And if you would have dug deeper down below the salacious headline, you would have saw that these companies were using the wrong tools for the wrong things. So, Matthew, you're a great sales and marketing person. You are the salesman. As the salesman, you're using tools for sales and marketing and promotions and advertising and things in that regard. Those same tools are not the tools you bump up a couple levels to do coding. Okay, if you that's not it. Nor should Snowflake be used for maybe sales and marketing activities, or should some of the other tools. It's funny. Somebody was talking Canva. Oh, I'm going to use Canva to get some of my details out of my environment so I can run reports. Wait, what? How are you going to pull the data out of your thing to get it into a Canva? Well, that's what they're there for. No, that's not what they're there for, and that's not what that tool does either. So I almost chuckled. I did kind of chuckle under my breath, and they caught my point real quick. I said, okay, so let's look at what you really want to do with this. How did you want to do it? Okay, so we're going to use Perplexity, and we're going to use Snowflake. We're going to grab the data. We're going to validate what you have inside your database. And oh, by the way, your database is nowhere near close to being clean. And second of all, you can't put it up to a publicly available Snowflake or Gemini or ChatGPT. You need to lock it down yourself and go forward from there.
Yeah, and so. What happens? So just talk people through, because I think theoretically people understand that AI and messy data can't play nicely together. But what actually happens when people try to plug in an AI into unstructured or poorly managed data?
Oh gosh! So AI will take whatever data you have and use that as your repository of truth. If your data is old, archaic, and dirty as all can be, that's when you start getting problems, because not only can AI use that data and come up with an answer for your dirty data, but it also will have hallucinations. Sorry, I can't barely breathe and talk at the same time. It will hallucinate. There we go, enunciate. So when you put that data in there, it will think that the next piece of data is X when maybe it was really Z, and go forward from there. And so bad data is horrible. You've got to start with a clean database. You've got to do archiving projects. You got to do all these different things and start that process along the right path from there. Do an archiving project first and a cleansing project before you do any AI projects.
Yeah, I like that. That's really smart. So just moving on to, now you've written a couple of books and you're currently writing a new one. Do you want to tell us about the new book that you're working on?
New book is about artificial intelligence. It's all about security and AI and why it's really super important. As a matter of fact, it's funny. I literally have part of it up right here. I was just talking to somebody about it. AI agents are here. Are your data security and governance policies ready? It's going to probably be maybe 50, 60 pages that I'm going to give away I got a conference that I'm going to, a couple of them in the beginning of the year here. And I want people to really understand that just because you're using AI doesn't mean, sorry about that, Matthew. My fire alarm is decided it wants to have a bad battery this morning, so I hope you don't hear that. But
no, that's okay.
As my dogs came running in. The AI agents and the security activities wrapped around these agents, if you don't take care of the security profiles for all of your AI activities, you're going to come up with a lot of problems. So that's what this outline and what this activity for this book is. And I'm going to be presenting that in Park City, Utah, and in Nashville, Tennessee, in February and March. So if anybody wants a book for free, I'll send it your way.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put the links below, and also you've got your other books you've written in the past, and so if anybody wants to get in touch with Chris, obviously we'll have the info below. So, how should a CEO think? So if they're thinking about upgrading their ERP system and their business operations systems, how should they? Where should they start thinking rather than going, oh well, we need more reports? Because often people go, I need better reports.
Right.
Is that where they should start? Where should a person start thinking to implement a product like what with SAP or other type of products?
Yeah, I look at it as this: do not stop innovating. Be an innovative CEO. Be an AI innovative driven CEO, and be able to use the tools that are embedded into these applications. Their AI tools are embedded inside of SAP called Joule. I like people that are innovative, and I think companies being innovative is where we need to continue to move forward. So as part of that, with that activity, a CEO needs to look at it and go, okay, what's going to help my company grow? What's going to be the innovative factor within our organization? Upgrading to SAP, putting it on Rise is one of the most innovative things you can do. Is there a cost associated with this? Absolutely. There's always a cost associated with upgrading your latest and greatest. But the value that you are going to get out of that innovation is far greater than the cost and time that's going to be locked into those activities. And the further and further you fall behind is the further and further that your company is going to be less successful against your competition. So I constantly tell them, if you're ready to move forward, or even if you think you're not, Let's have some conversations. Let's talk about the innovation factor and the move forward factor.
That's great advice. So, if you're thinking about how across all of your clients over the last 20 years and the real life situations you've seen across complexity, scale, systems, AI, what's the most dangerous lie that leaders tell themselves about growth?
Oh, we're growing just fine. Oh, 2% a year is good. Oh, you know what? We had 3% last year. We're good. We're all good. Well, okay. Well, your competitor was at 17%. You know what? Where the tools that we're using, oh, they're fine. You know what? They haven't expired yet. Oh, we've got an extension on them. We're fine with those. Those are the things that scare me when I talk to these leaders. First thing I hear out of their mouth is, oh, we were fine with 2% last year. It was a down economy. We had tariffs. I'm like, tariffs? What the hell are you talking about? Your competitor's at 17%. Your average in your industry is at 14%. What are you talking about? That's just laziness.
Got it. Very cool. Well, look, Chris, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with in relation to their business, AI, thought, anything like that?
Yeah, as a salesman and as the CEOs, we work together with each other. People aren't just selling me to get more tools or whatever, and I'm not trying to get the salesman to buy more. We work together hand in hand, and I feel as a CEO, I'm also a salesperson. So it's great to be able to work hand in hand with each other, and AI is going to help drive that. No matter if you're on the sales side or on the technical side, they all work hand in hand together. So don't think that you can just come in there and just drop something on people. Work hand in hand because you're going to get more of a benefit together than you will separately. And
That's
when
perfect.
you find me on LinkedIn and find me at an event, let's have a coffee or a bourbon together. I love chit-chatting with the guests.
Perfect. Well, I'll put all the links below, and Chris, send over your dates for your I know your tour dates. It's like a rock band. When you're on the road, because you're on the road most of the time. You're on the road a lot of the year, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Yep. I'm in a lot of different AI and tech events throughout the world. So if you see me that I'm speaking, just come up and say you saw me on the podcast, and I'd love to get a coffee or a bourbon with me.
Perfect. Very good. All right. Thanks very much, Chris. Great to have you on the show. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Chris, the links will be down below. Thanks very much.
Awesome.
Talk to you later. Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.